Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to All About Sports. Today we discuss our MLB National League predictions for this upcoming season. Last season, the National League was a bit shocking as the wildcard Washington Nationals, with only 93 wins, went all the way to the World Series to beat the Houston Astros in Game 7 to win their first World Series in franchise history. I'm your host, Luca Vitale, and joining me today is Ryan Gledhill. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing pretty good, Luca. Trying to stay entertained in these times, but hope you're doing well. And I'm ready to talk about some baseball here.
All right, let's get to it. What are your predictions for this upcoming season's NL?
The National League is going to be a very interesting league. As we all know, the 2020 offseason brought a very interesting hot stove in free agency. So all the teams are really looking very different this year. But I think the best thing to do is take this division by division. So why don't we go ahead and start with the NL East? Definitely a lot of teams that have some serious potential and some teams that really don't have potential, that they're just struggling a lot. Starting with teams that have some potential going into the season. Defending World Series champions, Washington Nationals, they have managed to keep a lot of their key players from that World Series roster. Steven Strasburg just signed for 7 years. Howie Kendrick is still on the team. Ryan Zimmerman signed with the team. They have a lot of they've managed to keep that kind of core together. And I don't know if you know about this guy. He's very young. His name's Juan Soto.
Yes.
An
emerging rising star, I can tell you that.
Oh my goodness, that guy's insane. Loved watching him in the series. But that team has a lot of. They're gonna be a continuous. They're going to be a continuous force in the NL East, I believe, because they've been able to keep their team together pretty well. Obviously the loss of Anthony Rendon to the Angels is pretty tough. Very good third baseman, but I think they'll be able to rebound from that and have a very solid season. They are looking very promising.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that at all. The Nationals are definitely a very good team, and kudos to them for winning the World Series last year. No one thought that would even happen or even come close, but good for them. Yeah. I'm happy for them for their first
beating the Houston Astros.
Yes, and I'm glad they won because after we found out what happened to Houston, I'm like, yes, Washington won. I'm fine with that. So I want to talk about the Mets. Let's talk about the Mets. We all know the Mets. They're the Mets. They find ways to lose. They find ways to get all injured, and then a bunch of who knows players come in, and yeah. So they finished 86 and 76 last year. Pretty respectable considering the Mets. When I want to start off with the Mets is they have a very similar team of the Washington Nationals. They're built around their great pitching, just like the Nationals are with Max Scherzer and Stephen Strasburg. The Mets are built around Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard. And I think it's really good they have those two because now they have Michael Wacha, Rick Porcello, and they have Marcus Stroman on that staff, which built it even stronger.
Not to jump in, but it's going to be very interesting to see how the Mets kind of recover from the Noah Syndergaard having to do Tommy John surgery. Like you said, lots of good pitchers that just came in. It'll be interesting to see how those new pitchers step up in their own individual ways and try and continue any momentum that they had at the end of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, their starting pitching, I don't have too much concerns. It's the bullpen I have concerns for with Edwin Diaz and Juris Familia signing long-term contracts last offseason. They did not have good seasons last year, so they got to bounce back and hopefully prove that they are the pitchers that they were paid to do the job. Then you have the young bats and Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil. I think they were very good, promising candidates to be great again at the plate, and Pete Alonso may not hit 50-something home runs again, but at least 30 because teams will figure him out eventually. But, yeah, I think the Mets, they will be a very good team. If we're talking about a 162-game schedule, I'm going to say around 95 games if they can stay healthy. If not, then my prediction will probably go down to like 86, 87-ish games. And I can see deGrom finishing with an ERA under 3 again because it's Jacob deGrom. And for that fifth spot in the rotation, I see Rick Porcello getting that over Michael Wacha. And my personal opinion, I think they won a wild card berth this postseason.
I'm gonna have to kind of disagree with you there. Not saying anything against the Mets. I think that they have a very solid team going into this, but the similar case with many divisions this year, just a lot of teams that are at their similar caliber in their division. Like, as you said, you compared them to the Nationals. It's going to be very tough to kind of see how a team like the Mets, who battles with injuries a lot and is very just an all-around common team in the MLB. It's going to be very interesting to see how they're able to make themselves stand out, or not just maybe not be better than the other team, but maybe just find a way to sneak a couple wins in there,
Yeah.
trying to get themselves into the playoffs any way they can. Personally, their bullpen is their biggest downfall for me. I'm not too hot about Jerry's Familia anymore. I don't really feel that he has the capability to continue and lead the Mets through the end of the games. I don't think he can do that. I'm not looking too optimistic for the Mets. I don't think they even make the playoffs. One, because of their bullpen, and two, just because of the division they're in. That you have two really good teams already. We mentioned the Nationals, and now I think we can talk about especially the Atlanta Braves. But
Correct.
that team is very promising. It's on the rise. Where the Mets, they've kind of been dipping down a little bit. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I don't have high hopes for the Mets, but who I do have high hopes for are the Atlanta Braves. Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah, you talk about the Braves. I like Ronald Acuna Jr. I like Ozzie Albies. I like all those young stars on that team. Dansby Swanson you can throw in there. I think they're a very good team. They've just choked the last 2 years in the playoffs, but they're a young team. They got to grow, and they have a bunch of potential in that roster. You got young pitchers rising in Mike Soroka and then Max Fried. I think they got a really good chance this year getting back to the postseason and making some noise for sure in the first round.
Yeah. And the biggest thing you can mention with a young team, especially, is you can make the excuse a lot of, oh, they're a young team. They'll be back. They have a future. At some point, especially since it's been a couple seasons since Dansby Swanson's rookie season, it's been a couple of seasons since Acuna Jr.'s rookie season and Albies' rookie season. At some point, you kind of have to say, all right, we got to step it up. We got to really have our veterans come in and like they had the experience. We need to get
Yeah,
into the
this is the
postseason.
year to do that. That's the year.
And definitely, I think keeping Freddie Freeman around for all of this for so long, that's definitely been in the favor in the Braves' favor. Not just maybe not because of his performances. He's been outstanding the last couple of years, in my opinion, just as a team player overall. So his stats might not show it 100% of the time, but I do believe that Freddie Freeman has been one of the most key, he's been one of the key points of the Atlanta Braves and how he's been able to kind of contribute to the success of their young roster.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. You break very good points. You can maybe even say a little about the same about Nick Markakis, but definitely not the same as Freddie Freeman. He's been on there a long time, and he's definitely helped these young stars rise and hopefully reach their potential. And the Braves, they will make some noise in this upcoming postseason. We'll see if they can get past the NLDS.
Absolutely. I think I'm definitely on the very optimistic for the Braves. I think they're going to have a really good season. Last year they finished atop the AL East, but again they weren't able to go through or the NL East. Excuse me. They finished atop the NL East, and unfortunately their other NL East rival, the Washington Nationals, they were able to win the World Series. So maybe that lights a fire under them this year. Definitely, they should definitely have high hopes for the Braves.
Yeah, definitely the Nationals they definitely took them to the test last year, and guess who won? The Nationals. I'll tell you who's a little bit under more pressure this season than the Braves. It's the Phillies, because
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you talk about Bryce Harper, one of the best stars in the game, and last year I didn't see that star in him. I mean,
He
he put
did
up
not
mediocre
perform.
numbers, 1/3 of the payroll. When you're getting paid to be a superstar, you got to play like a superstar.
Yeah, and there's been so many. We can talk about Bryce Harper all day on this, about how he's just a mediocre player or maybe he is a star player. But I think the other thing that the Phillies kind of really have, and they haven't really taken it to their advantage yet, is they have all the pieces really needed. They have a couple young stars, especially in Reese Hoskins. They had Andrew McCutchen last year, but then he got injured. He tore his ACL. They have a solid pitching rotation. They have the key pieces in order to kind of maintain relevancy, if you want to say. They have the key pieces to put something together. They just haven't done it yet. I think they've put a little too much pressure on Bryce Harper, and I don't think that he's been able to really gel with anyone else. And that's probably the biggest thing. If you signed a man for, like you said, a 30-year payroll, he's there for 13 years or 12 years, 11 years, however many it is now, you really need to have him be with people he can make plays with, make him be the star player. I think they haven't committed just yet. So the future of the Phillies, it's really in the air. It could go up, it could go down. It's really in the hands of the front office at this point.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong there either. Bryce Harper's a good player. You got Hoskins on there. You got McCutchen, who's coming back this season. And I think their shortstop, Segura, he's very good too. So I think they'll take a step forward this year instead of back because McCutchen will be back. But making the playoff wise, no, because I feel like the Braves and the Nationals are stronger and they won't get there.
Yeah. Also, Didi Gregorius is on the Phillies now.
Yes.
That veteran experience, especially from a really good team like the Yankees, it should really kind of help them, be motivated. Maybe this year is a bit of a realization year. Maybe this year you kind of figure out, okay, what things would work, what things wouldn't. Maybe it's an experiment year this year. I don't know. And why not this year? It's a great year to do it. So, maybe you try and figure a couple things out with your rosters.
Well, there's good news about this shortened year. We don't have to watch the Marlins stink it up all season long. So
come on, don't be mean to the Marlins. Come on, they're just rebuilding.
So the Marlins, last season, I only watched them when the Cubs played them personally. They're going through a really tough time, just like Cub fans did for 108 years. So I'm not going to sit there and be like, yeah, they're terrible and all. But they got some young pieces in there, and I feel like a couple of years, you can talk about maybe a wild card berth, or who knows, they may surprise us even faster.
Yeah, they definitely have a few young prospects to kind of keep them, to kind of give them something to hope for. And this offseason, they signed quite a few, a couple of notable, maybe not notable, like noticeable in the grand scheme of things. Like when you're comparing all these big contracts that happen and big moves, they might not be as significant for the league, but they're definitely significant for the team. They brought in a lot of experience this offseason. Corey Dickerson from the Phillies, a left fielder. He's 31. He has a little bit of that experience. Brandon Kinsler from the Cubs. We'll get to the Cubs later. He has been kind of around the teams. Like these old guys have been around the teams where they've had some of that success, especially in recent years. If we're talking about the Cubs, they've had some recent success. You got to keep that. It's great for the experience of everything. You need to teach the young guys, and this brings back to the point of the Braves. You got to teach the young guys how to, be successful in the major leagues.
Yeah, you're not wrong there at all. Bringing those veterans, like you said, Brandon Kinsler, I thought he was a very good reliever at the Cubs, and teaching those younger guys within their system, they'll definitely help them reach their potential to the ceiling, and I feel like they could definitely improve from last season, because why not?
You finish bottom of the barrel, why not just go up? That's probably the only place they can go. Maybe they can go a little bit further if they really want to tank for, a star prospect. But, who knows how that's going to go. A lot of people, a lot of prospects this year, unfortunately, like we really don't know much about them. So it's all up in the air for the Marlins, but I'm not looking too hope. It doesn't look too good for the Marlins this year.
No, not this year. Maybe 2 more seasons, 3 more.
But they changed their jerseys. They have different jerseys.
Yes.
Gone are the ridiculous orange jerseys. They're gone. I hated them. I'm glad they're gone. I like the color scheme of the new black uniforms, but, I'm happy their uniforms are gone.
Magically, they'll just be great like that because of the uniforms.
Nothing. I don't think I think the Marlins uniforms peaked with the Florida Marlins in the 1990s. Those uniforms, look good.
All right. So taking all that into consideration, who will win the NL East next season?
Who in the NL East? Personally, just from young talent, the perfect mix of young and old for me, I think it will be the Atlanta Braves over the Washington Nationals, surprisingly. But the Braves have just been they've had a little bit more of a steady uphill climb, and I think this year is really the year where they can do some damage in the major leagues.
You know what? I'm glad we can agree on this, because I was also going to say the Atlanta Braves, because now that the Washington Nationals have won their crown finally, usually the next year it's really hard for a champion to repeat its success like that, even though they're very young and talented. Don't get me wrong. But the Braves, I feel like, are going to have the upper hand this year, now that this is probably this is the third year now in which Acuna, Albies, and like all those young guys, especially their young pitching staff, I think they got the upper hand. But it'll definitely be a very close competition till the end.
Yeah, credit where credit's due. The Nationals, they've done a fairly good job of keeping their championship roster together, but I just think the Braves have the upper hand in the division.
Yep.